stand up there?
Yeah.
I stand up here so I can hide behind this. Can you hear me alright?
Yeah.
More importantly, can you understand my accent? I see he's kind of looking blankly. It's I know
Get rid of some slight.
Big tongue. Right, anyway, I must apologise for the delay in getting here. I must apologise. I was in Newcastle speaking at another meeting and there was a wee bit of hold up with the trains. And do you know where actually the train broke down? The train broke down for almost an hour to Grantham. I had to look at Grantham for almost an hour, so I was in a very good mood, you know. Anyway, I can just say I'm a trade unionist and I'm standing for the election as General Secretary in UCAP, the Construction Workers Union. I'm not a political theorist, I'm not a philosopher, and I wouldn't say I was the most in-depth, widely read, analytical mind on the subject. But nevertheless, I studied law. I studied law as a mature student, and I covered quite a lot of political philosophy, a lot of jurisprudence, and the subject of law was it was ingrained in you how the system works. It works in the system of contract. It works in the system of democracy and freedom, and it works in the system of everybody's got free bargaining power and how this system works and how it gets us the best benefits. That's how they taught law. And they taught law to the majority of the students who were there, and they swallowed it hook, line and sinker. Now I rejected that idea, and I rejected the idea of what I was getting told, because luckily enough I happened to be born in a place in Glasgow that was heavily populated by poverty, and the causes of poverty were very relevant. That poverty, what I saw evictions, I saw people having warrant sales where their furnitures was sold, I saw police brutality firsthand, I saw drunkenness, wife beating, I saw the whole gambit of it. So lucky enough, I rejected what they had to say to me, and I've rejected it as a young man, I've rejected it when I was a bricklayer working on building sites, I've rejected it when I was a law student, I've rejected it as a trade union official, and I'm going to reject it continually when I'm a union leader, and I'm going to continually reject it until there's an alternative, and that alternative is socialism, and that's what we're here for tonight to talk about. Daunted about the subject. I'm saying nobody's ever asked me this before, but nevertheless I've thought about this for a number of years. I've talked to people about it, I've dreamt about these ideals of ours and what we're about. I was blacklisted for many years in the building sites. I had probably one of the biggest files, and I'm not boasting or anything like that, but I'm just giving you some of my background, some of my credentials. The campaigns I was involved in were numerous, from the riots in Brixton to the miners' strike to Wapping. I've got about 11 assaults on police in my charge sheet. I've been arrested, I've been imprisoned, I've been the whole gambit of it. So I feel that privileged that I'm at least allowed to talk about something that I've been involved in. Because generally my life up until now has been very involved within my trade union. It's been very fast moving within that and trying to change that, and sometimes, and I must, it's a shame myself, I don't always look at as much analytically at the bigger picture, but anyway, I do know how capitalism works, and we all do, so I'm not going to rehash everything that was said, but we're actually talking about looking at alternatives, and we know how it works, and one of the instinctive things about how capitalism works is it must grow. It must grow, it must search for new markets, it must acquiesce, it must possess, it must become more powerful. It cannot stop, it cannot go back, it cannot think this is enough, because they do not ever have enough, they just have to have more. And I don't know what they want, I really do not know what they want, but because they can just keep taking and taking, and it's growing and growing. And what we've seen is that in the past, capitalism could be flexible. It could be flexible, so when there was a tax made on it, it could be flexible enough to adjust to certain of these tax and to give a little bit here and there. But the bigger it grows, the less flexible it's becoming. And you've got free trade agreements, you've got blocks, economic blocks, you've got the European Union, and it's all built towards this globalisation, where you've maybe got a top 400 people in America, 40 people in Britain, 30 people in Italy that are actually controlling the wealth, all moving towards the one centre. Now this inflexibility gives us a key in how we're going to fight it. And what we've seen, you've seen what's been happening in Greece. You've seen that rear up in Greece, and they've threw money. Unbelievably, the capitalist system have took money from here and they've gave it somewhere else. Why have they done that? Because they cannot afford to see the destruction of the European Union caused by this resistance. First of all in Greece, elsewhere in Spain, elsewhere at occasions in France. And that's what I want to come on to. That's what I want to come on to speak about. How we're going to resist this and how we're going to break this. And just looking at that model in Greece. Now, traditionally, this historical fight that we've got coming from trade unions has been when trade unions were organised. They weren't organised along socialist lines or socialist principles and social ideas. A lot of it comes from early church Methodism and such likes, and Christianity. And they had these ideas and they wanted to get organised and they wanted to get something back. So theirs was the idea was actually to create some sort of labour representation for working people. And that was maybe 200 years, 100 years ago, but nevertheless there are still trade union leaders today who still believe in that. They still believe that you can get something back by grovelling to the system. They still believe that if you're good to the system, you can get a little bit back, therefore you've justified your position. And again, it's never a position that I've ever took. It's never a position that I've ever believed in. I do not believe for a minute that the benefits of your labour should go to somebody else. I don't think that's right. I think the benefits of your labour should go back into your community, and they should be for the benefit of your community, not for the benefit of a private individual. That just should not happen. That's what I'm against. And when I'm the General Secretary of a trade union, UCA, that's what I will be arguing for, and I will condemn any other trade union leader that does otherwise. These trade unions, and again, I'm talking about trade unions because that's my background, that's my niche, that's what I know about. Now these trade unions, they continually complain about how the power of trade unions, we've got a lot less power. But nevertheless, they don't actually try and do anything about that. They still continue along the same lines of appeasing government, of paying for what they call a Labour Party to go into government and change the legislation. Now there is more people in AA than what there is in the trade, not Alcoholics Anonymous, in the automobile, but nevertheless, there are more people in the Automobile Association than what there is in trade unions. We're looking for a lot more than that because we deserve it. Now, they've complained continually, they've complained that the workers are apathetic, there's nothing we can do about it, that there's anti-trade union laws, hostile governments, there's nothing we can do about it. They continually look for excuses. And what I need to say tonight is that we're not going to continually talk about the negatives, because a lot of left groups, a lot of people on the left seem to bemoan and whinge and whine about the negatives. What you've got to start talking about is how we're going to win. We don't keep going on about how we're going to get beat. We've always been getting beat, but we've always been attacking and we've always made ground, and we can win. So let's start talking about winning as opposed to the forces that are against us, because just look at the forces that you've got on your side and start winning. Now, you can break this whole power. You can break their power. You can resist and you can break their power. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to do that. I know I've only got a certain amount of minutes, but nevertheless, you can do that bit by bit. I believe if you're looking at the whole, and if you want nationalised industry, I don't think you're going to get nationalised industry on the whole, but you're going to start with nationalising one bit of industry. And if we can do that, then we do another bit. And if that works, then the idea rolls on. The more we can get something, some gain, we can solidify and move on. And I was looking at this country. You've got a country here, you've got Britain, which sold its energy. It sold its energy to private individuals. It sold oil, it sold gas, it sold water. It sold water. There's somebody there in control of how much water you can use. That's that. Just say to yourself, how did that happen? Everybody's sitting back and thinking, how did this happen? And so there is arguments there to say we should be taking this back, very strong political and moral and economic arguments. The transport system, you can see the job of work that Bob Crow's doing, trying to wrestle the transport system back. And I believe that they will be effective, whether today or tomorrow, but sooner or later they will be more effective and at least get the transport renationalised. So there is bits and pieces, but what it is attacking everything as a whole is difficult. It's difficult. That's the position I'm coming from. So that bit by bit back, and how you would do that, rather than a trade union fighting for terms and conditions solely. This is what I've seen trade unions doing. They solely fight for a bit more money, to work less hours, to get a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Terms and conditions, bread and butter issues. Now, that's all well and good, but nevertheless, it doesn't go wide enough. Now, I believe trade unions should be more involved in our communities. We should be campaigning in our communities. We should be on the high street. We should be on the forefront. Anything that happens, the trade union is going to be there. See, the students' riots, you should not one word, not one dicky word, not one trade union official, not one leader of a trade union, nowhere in sight. And these riots and the looting as well, again, nobody in sight. They're never there. Now, where they should be in the past, they were in your communities, they were in your high streets, they were there in your face, because a lot of times people involved in trade unions were involved in their communities. And it just does not seem to be like that today. And we need to try and revitalise that. And why we need to revitalise that is I'll give you a good example. An example is 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama. A woman called Rosa Parks says, listen, I ain't getting off your bus. You can do what you like. You can go and do one. Now that led to the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement then led to social change and attacks on the system throughout the world. It ended up in South Africa, and you look at Northern Ireland, what happened there, and you can put all that back to somebody saying, I ain't getting on your bus. Now I'm getting off your bus. But you've got to remember, Rosa Parks was not working in isolation. There was a woman called Claudette Colville. Claudette Colville, 9 months before, she was just put in jail. Continually, people say, we ain't getting off your bus, but nothing happened, they were just put in jail. Rosa Parks was a member of a trade union, and so was a chap called E.A. Nixon. An unsung hero, one of these people just disappears into the mist of history. And this guy had 2 hats. He was also the shop steward for the local, what you call the Train Porters Association. And he was also a member of Martin Luther King's church. And he went to Martin Luther King and he says, look, this is out of order. What can we do about this? And they marched on the prison where Rosa Parks was. And you know the rest is history. Now, as I say, Claudette Colville was not keyed into that. And the more people we've got keyed into that, the greater community links, then the greater the opportunity is of actually getting campaigns out in the street. When we can start campaigning out among the community, we can get the community on our side. We can start mobilising the communities then, like they're doing in Greece and like they're doing in France. I cannot see why we cannot do what they can do over there. Now, where we're falling short, and I believe where we're falling short is, maybe not yourself, but I can see it. We somehow seem to be ashamed. We somehow seem to be ashamed of saying that we're socialists. We somehow seem to be ashamed we somehow seem to be ashamed of saying who we are, of what we're about. We're red and we're proud. We seem to be shying away from that. When you look at the things that's been happening with this system, you think of them, what they've done in Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever it is, you think of them, what they're doing here, you think of how they're robbing us blind, but there doesn't seem to be that voice, that proud voice saying, we're going to stop you. This is our team. We've got a vision, and that vision is socialism, and we're going to stop you. We don't seem to be loud enough. Now, what I would like to see in every demonstration, and everywhere we are, people who are turning up and politicising other workers. So groups, people like yourself can turn them up, you can assist in the organising, you assist in the agitation, and you assist in that politicisation process. And when these bread and butter issues are won, that politicisation process then starts to take place. If you can win the bread and butter issues, you can then start talking about what's happening in Palestine, you can start talking about equality, you can start talking about globalisation, you can start looking at this system and how it works, and how it is that these rich people take from your children to give to their children, so that their children are better clothed, their children are better fed, and their children are better educated so they can rule your children. You can get that message across in a simple, easy way. You don't have to dress it up and call it anything else. It's what it is. It's an alternative. You put forward this alternative. You continually say that. You put forward this alternative, and you've got these bread and butter issues working together in the community. Who knows what's going to happen? We cannot promise anything that's going to happen, but occasionally, when you get the students kicking off, when you get what happened at Mark Duggan's funeral, we'll be there to fan the flames of that. And that's how you get resistance, and that's how you start to break down these capitalist barriers. You make them shaky, and you start to smash their units. And that's what I would try and see. But anyway, again, comrades, remember who you are. That's another thing you seem to forget. Don't ever for a minute think, don't ever doubt yourself in where you are. Don't ever doubt that yourself, that your party and movement is perennial. It's got a long history. You stand on broad shoulders. People all over the world believe in what you believe in, and they're fighting and dying for it. You're part of something. This isn't just a wee group of people turning up. So sometimes when you feel isolated, sometimes when you feel it's hopeless, sometimes you feel frustrated, remember who you are. Remember what you're about. Remember that you're part of a movement that can change the world. Because I tell you what, if you're not going to do it, nobody else is going to do it. So let's get that vision, let's get that pride, let's get out there and start organising these communities, get organising in your trade union, start building the link, and start fighting back. Because when you start fighting back today, tomorrow you'll win. Thanks. There's a students' demonstration on the 9th, yeah? Yeah. There's also a national construction workers' demonstration on the 9th as well. So then they can bang into each other, you know.